Human beings are creatures of conviction, often guided not by facts, logic, or reason, but by beliefs that feel true, whether or not they are. We navigate our lives on invisible assumptions about ourselves, others, and the world around us. And yet most of these assumptions go unexamined. Dan Ariely begins Misbelief with an unsettling claim. Much of what we believe to be reality is, in fact, a misbelief, a psychological construct shaped by fear, social influence, cognitive bias, and emotional shortcuts. And while misbeliefs can comfort, they can also mislead, misdirect, and even destroy opportunities, relationships, and progress. The first lesson emerges immediately. Clarity about our beliefs is the first step to clarity in action. Without it, we act on illusions, respond to imagined threats, and overlook tangible opportunities. If you love powerful, insightful, and life-changing books, then you've found the right channel. Every week, we break down the ideas that transform mindsets, elevate success, and shift lives, so don't miss out. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because you'll want to catch every book we review. Let's continue. Consider, for instance, the ways individuals respond to money, health, and trust. In the United States, a common misbelief is that wealth accumulation is primarily a product of intelligence or effort alone. Americans are inundated with media narratives of self-made billionaires, yet Ariely demonstrates that luck, timing, inherited privilege, and social networks play enormous roles. Recognizing this does not diminish ambition, rather it reframes it. Those who understand the reality of influence, context, and system-level factors can act strategically rather than naively. In India, a startup founder may assume that success is only about hard work, not realizing that mentorship, government regulation, and market access are equally crucial. Globally, misbeliefs about meritocracy lead people to misallocate effort, blame themselves or others unfairly, and overlook the subtle levers that truly drive outcomes. Ariely's work reveals that examining our beliefs against reality is the foundation of wiser decisions. Ariely then moves to a more personal plane, misbeliefs about ourselves. Humans are prone to overestimating competence, underestimating bias, and misjudging motives. In corporate America, for example, executives frequently overestimate their negotiation skills, assuming that their decisions are purely rational. Yet behavioral evidence shows that emotions, social framing, and cognitive shortcuts often dominate decision-making. Similarly, in Europe, policymakers overconfident in economic projections fail to anticipate crises because they rely on simplified mental models rather than robust data. In Asia, students misjudge their own learning capabilities, assuming understanding when comprehension is shallow. Ariely's lesson is clear. Self-misperception is not trivial. It shapes every choice we make, from relationships to finance, from education to career paths.
The book also examines the emotional dimension of misbeliefs. Feelings often override facts, and humans are wired to value narrative over logic. A dramatic story of a single plane crash overshadows the millions of safe flights each day. A rare act of fraud in business inspires more fear than decades of ethical entrepreneurship. Ariely emphasizes that emotional resonance is not inherently bad, but misbelief arises when emotion substitutes for reason. The practical takeaway is transformative. Decisions guided by evidence tempered with emotion are far more reliable than decisions dominated by fear or desire alone. Globally, this insight applies to investors reacting to market panic, citizens responding to sensationalist media, and leaders weighing policy under social pressure. Another critical theme Ariely develops is misbelief in predictive certainty. Humans crave confidence and often overstate their ability to predict outcomes, whether in economics, technology, or personal life. In Silicon Valley, founders frequently assume their startups will dominate markets, ignoring probabilistic outcomes and the role of chance. In Europe, urban planners may overestimate the impact of interventions without accounting for social complexity. In Africa, development programs sometimes fail because implementers assume linear outcomes in nonlinear systems. Ariely's lesson is subtle but crucial. Humility about the limits of prediction allows individuals and organizations to plan more effectively, respond to unexpected changes, and learn continuously. Ariely's narrative naturally leads into the power of intentional reflection. Recognizing misbeliefs requires deliberate, structured thinking. He provides exercises that reveal common biases, such as misjudging risk, underestimating probability, or misreading social cues. Globally, this practice is vital, from American students learning probability to African farmers estimating crop yield, from European policymakers assessing migration flows to Asian entrepreneurs evaluating investment risk. The ability to reflect critically on beliefs transforms outcomes. The philosophical underpinning is clear. Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom, as Aristotle famously wrote. By linking personal introspection with behavioral insights, Ariely equips readers to align belief with reality and action with impact. Having recognized the subtle yet profound ways misbelief shapes our understanding, Ariely dives into how misbelief manifests in our everyday lives, from money and health to morality and relationships. The central lesson emerges clearly. Unchecked beliefs distort choices, while examined beliefs empower action. This principle resonates globally, affecting individuals from Wall Street to Silicon Valley, from European policymakers to African entrepreneurs, and from Indian households to Asian startups. Misbelief is both personal and systemic, affecting our financial decisions, social judgments, and moral reasoning. Ariely begins with money, a domain rife with misbelief. Many Americans, for instance, assume that financial success is solely a product of saving diligently or earning more. Yet behavioral patterns often contradict these assumptions. Credit card debt, impulsive spending, and overconfidence in investment strategies reveal the misalignment between belief and action. Similarly, in Europe, despite strong social safety nets, individuals frequently misjudge the long-term impact of pensions, taxation, or housing costs, often prioritizing immediate gratification over strategic planning. In Nigeria or India, households might overinvest in visible status symbols rather than education or health, driven by the misbelief that appearances alone signal success. Ariely's lesson is both practical and profound. Awareness of our financial misbeliefs allows us to design systems, habits, and interventions that guide rational choices even when our instincts fail. Next, Ariely addresses health and wellness, illustrating how misbelief profoundly affects decisions with life and death consequences. Globally, people frequently misjudge risks, overestimating rare dangers while underestimating common threats. Americans, for example, may fear shark attacks or plane crashes while neglecting diet and exercise, risks with far greater mortality consequences. In India, misbelief about traditional remedies or quick fixes can delay effective treatment for serious illnesses. Similarly, in Africa, misconceptions about vaccination or malaria prevention undermine public health efforts. Ariely demonstrates that misbelief often arises from emotionally compelling stories rather than data. Echoing the ancient philosophical warning from Epictetus, it is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them. By identifying and correcting misbeliefs about health, individuals and societies can make choices that save lives, reduce suffering, and allocate resources effectively. Another arena Ariely explores is morality and ethics, where misbelief has systemic consequences. People frequently believe that others are more honest, fair, or cooperative than they actually are, or conversely, that society is dominated by selfishness. In the U.S., this misperception can fuel polarized debates about fairness in taxation, corporate ethics, or political behavior. In Europe, debates about immigration and social welfare often hinge on misbeliefs about who deserves help and who is responsible for systemic problems. In developing nations, perceived corruption or nepotism can become normalized because individuals overgeneralize based on anecdotal evidence rather than data. Ariely's lesson is critical. Ethical misbelief shapes behavior, but careful examination of incentives, norms, and real-world outcomes can guide both individual and collective action toward more equitable, effective solutions.
Relationships, too, are fraught with misbelief. Humans naturally assume that others think, feel, or act like themselves, a cognitive shortcut Ariely highlights repeatedly. In romantic partnerships, for example, Americans may misjudge communication patterns, overestimating understanding or emotional alignment, which often leads to conflict. In Asia, cultural assumptions about family obligations can generate tension between generations, fueled by unexamined beliefs about duty, respect, and independence. Globally, misbelief in social behavior can impede collaboration. Teams fail not due to skill, but due to misaligned expectations rooted in perception rather than reality. Ariely's insight is clear. Examining assumptions about others, actively seeking feedback and evidence, improves relationships, cooperation, and decision-making. Ariely also examines the misbelief of self-control, a cornerstone of behavioral economics. Individuals overestimate their capacity to resist temptation, delay gratification, or stick to rational plans. In the U.S., gym memberships, savings accounts, and diet plans are often abandoned despite initial conviction, illustrating the gap between belief and behavior. In Europe, similar patterns appear in professional life. Overcommitting to productivity or ethical standards without structural supports leads to burnout or lapses. In India and Africa, entrepreneurs may overestimate their ability to manage resources under uncertainty, neglecting risk mitigation or contingency planning. The lesson is strategic. Designing external structures, automatic savings, behavioral nudges, deadlines, or accountability systems aligns belief with action and mitigates the destructive effects of misbelief. The book highlights the social amplification of misbelief. People do not operate in isolation. Social networks magnify biases. Consider political polarization in the U.S. Misbelief spreads rapidly through social media, echo chambers, and selective exposure, reinforcing false narratives and undermining cooperation. In Europe, migration debates are shaped as much by anecdotal stories as by data, fueling prejudice and policy misalignment. Globally, in India, Africa, and Latin America, community beliefs influence voting, health behavior, and market choices, often amplifying small misperceptions into systemic consequences. Ariely emphasizes a crucial lesson. Understanding the social dynamics of belief equips individuals to resist misinformation, influence others constructively, and engage in collective problem-solving. Another domain Ariely scrutinizes is technology and information, where misbelief can have immediate, large-scale impact. Globally, people misjudge the credibility of information online, often taking emotionally compelling stories as truth. Americans overreact to viral falsehoods. Europeans miscalculate technological risks or benefits based on selective reporting. Africans and Asians encounter similar distortions with misinformation about health, politics, or business. Ariely emphasizes that fact-checking, skeptical inquiry, and evidence-seeking are not optional, they are essential for navigating the modern information landscape. The lesson flows naturally. Misbelief can be corrected through intentional learning, critical thinking, and disciplined engagement with evidence. The cumulative effect of these insights is profound. Misbelief distorts perception, misguides action, and constrains human potential. But awareness, reflection, and structured design of our environments can correct it.
By recognizing misbelief in finance, health, morality, relationships, and information, individuals can align their actions with reality, generating tangible improvements. Globally, this approach transforms markets, public policy, and social collaboration. In the U.S., evidence-based decision-making drives better corporate governance and civic engagement. In India, behavioral interventions in education and health achieve measurable results. In Europe, policy grounded in data rather than narrative fosters sustainable social programs. Across Africa and Latin America, community-based initiatives leverage factual understanding of human behavior to create resilience and growth. Finally, Ariely situates his lessons within a broader philosophical and motivational framework. Misbelief is not a failing. It is a predictable consequence of human cognition. Awareness transforms vulnerability into opportunity. Aristotle's wisdom resonates throughout the narrative. Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. Recognizing misbelief allows individuals to navigate the complexities of modern life with clarity, courage, and strategic foresight. It empowers people to act purposefully, challenge unexamined assumptions, and harness both reason and emotion towards constructive ends. The ultimate lesson of morality is evident. Examining our beliefs systematically transforms them from constraints into tools for meaningful, impactful action. Once we recognize the pervasive influence of misbelief, Ariely pivots to a profound insight. Knowledge alone is not enough. Action requires deliberate strategies to align belief with reality. Awareness of bias or misconception is the first step, but without behavioral interventions, even well-informed individuals remain vulnerable to old patterns. Ariely emphasizes that humility, reflection, and structured design of our environments are essential tools. Across the globe, from the bustling streets of New York to the villages of India, from corporate boardrooms in London to tech hubs in Nairobi, these principles have immediate relevance.
Ariely introduces the concept of nudging behavior to overcome misbelief. Humans are predictably irrational. Even when we know the right choice, habits, emotions, and social cues can mislead us. In the United States, companies like Apple and Amazon use behavioral design to guide decisions. Subscription defaults, reminders, and frictionless purchasing systems leverage the same cognitive patterns Ariely describes, but for commercial purposes. In public health, nudges are used effectively worldwide. India's government reminders for vaccinations, European energy conservation campaigns, and African initiatives encouraging savings all demonstrate that small design interventions can overcome deep-seated misbeliefs. The lesson is clear. Structuring environments to align with human behavior enables better decisions without relying solely on willpower or perfect knowledge. Another critical strategy Ariely emphasizes is transparent feedback. Humans often misjudge outcomes because they lack immediate, clear feedback on the consequences of their actions. In financial markets, traders in New York or London who receive timely performance metrics adjust their strategies more effectively than those without feedback loops. In educational settings, students in India and Europe benefit from instant grading or adaptive learning software that corrects misbeliefs about their understanding. Feedback acts as a mirror, revealing gaps between belief and reality. The motivational takeaway is profound. When we see the truth of our actions reflected clearly, we gain the power to course correct, grow, and achieve our goals. Ariely also examines the role of social influence in correcting misbelief. Misbelief is not only personal, it is propagated and reinforced by communities. Yet the same social forces can promote accurate beliefs when leveraged intentionally. In Africa, community-led public health initiatives succeed because local leaders model evidence-based practices, shifting norms and beliefs. In the U.S., social campaigns that highlight peer behavior, such as energy-saving programs that show neighbors' consumption, encourage sustainable habits. In Europe, collaborative platforms for citizen science or local governance empower communities to act on accurate data rather than assumptions. The lesson resonates broadly. Social structures can amplify truth as effectively as they propagate misbelief. A particularly powerful section of Misbelief focuses on habit formation and self-discipline. Ariely argues that human misbelief often arises from overestimating willpower. Across continents, individuals consistently overcommit, procrastinate, or fail to act despite knowing the consequences. Behavioral strategies like automating savings, scheduling health interventions, or breaking tasks into smaller steps bridge the gap between intention and action. Consider global examples. In the United States, automatic payroll deductions increase retirement savings. In India, microloan repayment systems incorporate reminders and incentives. In Europe, structured dietary programs improve adherence to health goals. Ariely's lesson is clear. Structuring habits and systems reduces the burden on flawed human judgment, transforming misbelief into effective action. Technology itself becomes a tool to correct misbelief when used thoughtfully. Ariely notes that access to real-time information, predictive analytics, and personalized feedback can counter common cognitive errors. For instance, AI-driven medical diagnostics in Europe help doctors overcome biases and misbeliefs about symptoms. In Africa, mobile banking platforms educate users about financial behavior, reducing errors caused by assumptions or incomplete understanding. In Asia, online educational platforms track progress and provide evidence-based corrections to learning misbeliefs. Across sectors, technology amplifies human capacity to align belief with reality, but it must be paired with critical thinking, reflection, and ethical oversight to avoid creating new forms of misbelief. Ariely also stresses the importance of emotional awareness in overcoming misbelief. Emotions amplify biases and distort decision-making. Recognizing emotional triggers, fear, overconfidence, envy, or social comparison allows individuals to pause and examine the underlying belief. Globally, this lesson manifests in leadership, negotiation, and collaboration. American CEOs who manage emotional impulses negotiate more effectively. European policymakers who balance empathy with data-driven decision-making create sustainable policies. African community organizers who understand emotional dynamics can encourage participation and trust. The motivational takeaway is transformative. Self-awareness turns emotional energy from a source of distortion into a tool for insight and influence. Education is a recurring theme in Ariely's prescriptions. Teaching people about misbelief, bias, and behavioral patterns creates a ripple effect of clarity. In the United States, behavioral economics courses help students understand the disconnect between intuition and reality. In India and Africa, educational programs integrating evidence-based reasoning equip young people to navigate markets, health, and governance more effectively. In Europe, critical thinking and statistics education empower citizens to challenge misinformation and participate responsibly in democracy. Ariely emphasizes that education alone is insufficient. It must be paired with practice, reflection, and social reinforcement to dismantle entrenched misbelief. Finally, Ariely highlights the role of philosophy and perspective in combating misbelief. Misbelief is not merely a cognitive problem, it is existential. Humans construct narratives about the world to feel secure, moral, and purposeful. Yet these narratives often distort reality. By combining rigorous data analysis with introspection, reflection, and ethical consideration, individuals can align their internal beliefs with external truth, creating a foundation for purposeful action. As Confucius wisely stated, real knowledge is to know the extent of one's ignorance. Ariely translates this into modern action. Acknowledging our misbeliefs empowers us to act wisely, innovate responsibly, and lead with integrity.
By the time we reach the final insights of misbelief, the overarching truth is unmistakable. The beliefs we hold shape the lives we lead, the choices we make, and the impact we have on the world. Misbelief is not a rare phenomenon. It is the default state of the human mind. Ariely's genius lies in showing that misbelief is neither shameful nor irredeemable. It is predictable and therefore correctable. The final lessons synthesize awareness, action, and ethical reflection into a blueprint for both personal fulfillment and societal influence. Ariely emphasizes that purposeful reflection is the bridge from misbelief to mastery. Humans often act reactively, guided by assumptions, narratives, and emotional shortcuts. Across the globe, the consequences are tangible. An American investor panicking during market volatility, a European policymaker implementing short-term measures without systemic insight, an Indian entrepreneur overestimating consumer demand, or an African NGO misallocating resources due to misunderstood community needs. The remedy is deliberate introspection paired with evidence, tracking patterns, questioning assumptions, and seeking feedback. Philosophically, this mirrors the wisdom of Seneca. No man was ever wise by chance. Only through structured reflection can we translate knowledge of misbelief into practical mastery. Another essential lesson is the integration of humility and curiosity. Misbelief often stems from overconfidence, believing that we understand more than we do. Ariely highlights that leaders and individuals who acknowledge uncertainty are more likely to seek advice, validate assumptions, and adapt to changing circumstances. In Silicon Valley, tech entrepreneurs who embrace data-driven iteration outperform those blinded by hubris. In Europe, urban planners who engage with local communities achieve more sustainable policy outcomes than those who rely solely on expert intuition. In Africa, farmers using participatory learning networks see better yields because they remain open to experimentation and local knowledge. Globally, humility and curiosity transform potential misbelief into an engine for growth and innovation. Decision-making under uncertainty is another cornerstone. Ariely illustrates that humans habitually overestimate predictability, underestimating randomness, chance, and complexity. In the United States, corporate and governmental leaders often fall prey to this bias, assuming linear outcomes in dynamic systems. In Asia, startup founders misjudge market readiness, leading to premature scaling or failure. In Europe, social policies based on outdated assumptions produce unintended consequences. Ariely's solution is systematic. Combine evidence, probability, scenario planning, and behavioral nudges to navigate uncertainty. The lesson is clear. Embracing the limits of prediction fosters flexibility, resilience, and better long-term outcomes. Ariely also explores the moral dimension of belief correction. Misbelief can perpetuate injustice, inequity, and harm. Globally, understanding human behavior through the lens of behavioral economics enables more ethical interventions. For example, in public health, framing vaccinations in terms of community benefit rather than personal risk increases uptake. In finance, transparent disclosures and nudges reduce predatory practices. In education, feedback-rich systems correct misbelief about learning capabilities, giving students equitable access to success. Ariely's lesson flows naturally. Aligning belief with reality is not merely a cognitive exercise. It is a moral imperative that amplifies positive impact. Social influence remains central to mastery. Misbelief is contagious, but so is fact-based reasoning and ethical modeling. Ariely illustrates that leaders, mentors, and influencers have a responsibility to propagate truth responsibly. In the U.S., corporate cultures that reward evidence-based decisions create higher-performing teams. In Europe, civic education that teaches critical thinking strengthens democratic participation.
In Africa and India, community leaders who model data-informed decisions foster trust, compliance, and resilience. The global lesson is simple but profound. Our beliefs affect others, and correcting misbeliefs amplifies collective capability and societal well-being. Ariely also underscores emotional alignment with reality. Emotions are neither good nor bad. They are signals. Misbelief arises when we allow feelings to override evidence. Leaders who integrate emotional intelligence with behavioral insight make more empathetic and effective decisions. Entrepreneurs who balance passion with critical feedback create sustainable businesses. Policymakers who account for human sentiment alongside data achieve better societal outcomes. The motivational takeaway is clear. Emotions, when calibrated with evidence, become instruments for insight rather than distortions of truth. Finally, the book culminates in a call to proactive engagement with the world. Misbelief is not destiny. It is a challenge to be met with curiosity, humility, and action. Globally, this manifests in countless ways. The American activist using behavioral insights to improve community participation. The European policymaker designing systems to prevent inequity. The Indian entrepreneur leveraging data to enhance literacy and health outcomes. The African innovator creating scalable solutions informed by local realities. The philosophical resonance is undeniable. As Aristotle said, the more you know yourself, the more clarity you bring to your actions. By confronting misbelief, we become architects of reality, shaping outcomes rather than being shaped by illusion. In conclusion, misbelief teaches that belief is a double-edged sword. Left unchecked, it constrains potential, misguides choices, and perpetuates harm. When examined, understood, and guided by evidence, it becomes a tool of power, insight, and impact. Ariely's work is a roadmap. Recognize misbelief, understand its origins, leverage behavioral strategies, embrace humility and curiosity, and act ethically. Across every sphere, personal life, professional endeavors, civic engagement, and global collaboration, this approach transforms uncertainty into opportunity, fear into focus, and knowledge into meaningful action. The final unifying lesson resonates across continents and centuries. Clarity of belief is the precursor to clarity of action, and clarity of action is the precursor to meaningful, lasting impact. When we act upon reality rather than illusion, we unlock human potential on a scale both personal and global, turning misbelief from a limiting force into a catalyst for achievement, wisdom, and positive change. If this message resonated with you, subscribe and join us for more wisdom that fuels growth.